find yourself getting passed by multiple cars, as I mentioned earlier on. So Mileham in a very precarious situation, but he often finds himself in these places. Doesn't qualify as well as he races.
Up front, they are getting with Lee Aberdeen and Luca Varani, not very far apart at all here. But I just want to see how Alistair Haig deals with Marcello Kessler coming around the old hairpin.
I would say it's not the best decision they've ever made, just not having done that under the safety car, really.
Yeah, they're taking their pit stop strategies from Ferrari lately or something. What's going on?
In turn one, just too much gas on them, too much feet on the loud pedal, and unfortunately he's dropped all the way down the order. But Philip Hammer is out in front by an 8.91 seconds. Dan Michael is a wall there, sir. And it definitely doesn't want to be hitting that earlier on as well.
Difficult, the understeer is in the dirty air through that final corner because it's such a long corner and you get dragged off into the grass very easily. He'll have the slipstream down towards the chicane. Peterson was briefly alongside, but that slipstream has saved him and kept him in third.
Yeah, Varani now lost a little bit of time to Aberdeen, about half a second. Peterson is Pike's pushed Morton forward up ahead. He's got out of line. Is now Pike going to have a go at Werrell? Don't push him off. He's in the championship fight. Jack Werrell chasing down Carl Jacklin. Further down, Rob Williams and Chris Barnes.
Sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly. Miller's just like trouble. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden Miller's back in play.
Moving on to the back end of Phil Jocelyn. So there's been a lot of movers and shakers in this first 2 laps here for race.
Absolutely serious racing league. Everybody's a lot of fun. Yeah, and it's all about the entertainment. So I hope everybody is enjoying themselves out there in the chat. We know that Ron is been enjoying himself watching the Burger King machines off into the grass a little bit there as they're really bunching up now.
coming down to the side. You have it.
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly. Miller's still such up. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's gonna do it. Big Barry.
We are live.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Tanso Racing Group Season 3 Event 4. We take to rounds 7 and 8 live from Bathurst here at Mount Panorama. My name is Sweeney, Callum Mileham alongside me in the commentary booth. We're bringing you all the live action here on the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel. And while Callum, coming into today, of course, these GR86s are fast, fun, agile, and always some good racing to just chuck them around a race course. But today I think we're going to see something slightly different. Mount Panorama is a different beast.
That is for certain. We've seen some good racing so far throughout the season, and there's plenty more to come as well. But the biggest challenge now on this calendar, in my opinion, is tonight's round 7 and 8 races. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens, especially going up around the mountain.
Indeed so, absolutely. Mount Panorama is the home, essentially, of Australian motorsport. It's the centrepiece, the spotlight for the Aussies down under, and you are literally climbing up and back down a mountain. It is one that has famed itself in V8 supercars over the years, and also within the iRacing endurance sort of scene as well. So many great memories to come from Mount Panorama, so many memories to come from Mount Panorama, and I think that first step is going to be right here, right now, with some good old GR86 racing from these guys. We've seen throughout the season already how good these cars can be, purely because they're low horsepower, low aerodynamic capability, soft suspension, a great beginner car, similar sort of to the MX-5s in some regards, a couple of little quirks and differences. But apart from that, they are very much a similar sort of racing style that you start to see. The moves you chuck down the inside, the way that you literally have the car ragging on the end of the red line, trying to maximize each and every single bit of horsepower that you can get out of the very small engines that we've got. And I think they're going to need those engines here, because while that ascend up towards Skyline and then that run back down towards Forest Elbow, I think is going to be a fantastic one indeed. Coming into today though, of course, we are well and truly underway in the championship standings. Of course, we are here tonight in Mount Panorama. We have 3 more rounds. Donington Park in a week's time, Okayama and Silverstone Legacy on the 25th of June to round us off for the final 2 races, rounds 13 and 14. And, well, in terms of the championship, it seems that it is looking fairly close. We were mentioning how some of the top 3 are incredibly close and have been down each other's throats for the entirety of it. So, well, let's take a look, I think, as to how things are racking up in terms of the points standings. There they are. These are the AMs. These are the red lot on the timing tower. They're the ones to look out for, but it is incredibly close. Look at that, 5 points between Mark Proctor and Joe Clark. Shane Cotton only 5 points back as well, so well and truly still fermented in the championship fight. Then a big gap back down to Martin Lee, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Johnson the top 5, but a good little fight there for 4th place. It seems the top 3, however, having a bit of a breakaway. Then you can see all the way down there. Still fairly close in that fight for the midfield, but as I say, mainly it is going to be Proctor, Glass and Cotton to fight for the championship as the season progresses, all the way down to Sean Clark in P18. That rounds up the AMs. Let's take a look at the pros. Of course, the top 3, John Sylvester, Harry Fox and Ryan Dudley, not separated by much at all. 205 for the Platinum Racing Team, 192. John Sylvester incredibly quick in touring cars and seemingly incredibly quick in these GR86s as well. Harry Fox, Ryan Dudley make up the rest of the top 3, with Danny Wareham and Scott Kostrick the top 5. Then comes Neil Rocks, Mark Brown and Alex Sylvester to the top 8. Very, very close. Again, in the pros, you can see only 15 points between first and second, 19 between the top 3, and then beyond that it just gets even closer all the way down to Aaron Kirby there in P18. He himself only 9 points off the next car there of Gary Linton. So it seems there is still a lot to play for in the championship calendar.
There certainly is. There's nothing that's really tight between there's nothing that's really gapping out quite wide between these guys. Everything's very tight still, and everything's still to play for in this championship as well, which is another reason why this championship's just a fantastic one to be a part of at this moment in time. Just there's nothing to give between these drivers as it stands.
Nothing at all. And right now they are into their qualifying session, about 3/4 of the way through. 10 minutes to put as many lap times in as they can. 2.5 minute lap time around Mount Panorama. It's a long one, 6.14 kilometers as Mark Brown tops the timing sheets. Only half a tenth of a second back is Harry Fox. That's about 2 blinks of an eye between them. However, Scott McFall very much reigns on their parade with a 2:38.73. 38.73, puts him half a second clear of Mark Brown. But around a circuit like Bathurst, Callum, there's not really much in it at all. When you think half a second, you think that's been a little bit braver through Skyline, through the S's, into Forest Elba. That's being a little bit later on the brakes in certain places. Half a second in cars like these at a circuit like this can be made up easily.
Yeah, little mistakes from drivers who can make all the difference, especially in your own drive as well, because you don't want the mistakes to fall off onto you, but someone else's mistake can the race, but also it could be a massive gain for you as well. So, for example, Scott McFall at the top, he has a little slip up. Mark Brown could easily capitalise on that and get a massive lead, especially if you have a little slip up in this mountain area. It could either cause carnage or be an absolute delight for those following in behind.
And how important do you think track position is going to be at a circuit like this? Obviously, typically we see it with the GT3s. They're sort of the main ones in iRacing that take to this circuit, and we always talk about how tricky it can be at certain points for those GT cars to make the moves, but we're not in GT machinery. We're in these GR86s, narrower, more agile, more able to sort of give each other a bit more space. There's a lot more capacity for racing. So are we expecting a similar theme to the GT3s, or are we expecting track position to mean a little bit less in cars like these?
I think we're looking for exactly the same thing as the GTs, really. I mean, the main thing we would like to see tonight, but at the end of the day, we have a grid full of racers, is we want to see these guys, you know, go in sort of not side by side, but in a single file line if possible, and like leading up into the mountain, so there's little collision going on there at all. That would be quite nice to see, but I think with these racing drivers, they're going to be trying to go in position side by side and all sorts, but track position, especially going into the first race, I think is going to be majorly important with what's on the line tonight.
Yes, absolutely. I think plenty is on the line, particularly now we're into the second half of the championship, well into the second half of the championship. We do apologise for a couple of audio issues. Thank you for bringing it to our attention, to those in the YouTube chat. The 10-minute qualifying has drawn to a close, so we'll bring you the grid up as soon as we can. And here it is. Scott McFall able to take pole position, then the Scotsman will lead them in towards turn number 1. Mark Brown will join him on the front row, half a second back, but beyond that, look at how close qualifying is. Harry Fox, John Sylvester, row 2, Daniel Wareham, the top 5 with Sean Weber, the 6th car on the grid. Alex Sylvester, Marcus Law with Joe Glass and Mark Proctor making an all-am front row on row 5. Johnston, Rox, Dudley, Kostrick and Cotton, the top 15 with Richard Flutie, Lee Rylands and Neil Kennedy, the 9 rows that we've got. Only 3 seconds covering the entire field, which I think is fairly good, but what are we expecting from Scott McFall in this race then? How is he going to be able to maximise his opportunities considering the vast amount of pace that he's shown?
He's shown some very good pace, I have to admit, so far throughout the season, but he really needs to get full momentum out of today as best as he possibly can, because it's going to be crucial getting off this line early and, well, within reason as well, early. As soon as those lights go green, he needs to have a good start on this race, because if not, the guys behind are certainly going to capitalise very, very quickly. So it's going to be very tense and interesting to see what happens here.
And very quickly, who's coming out on top?
Oh, I have to back Mark Brown. He's been very consistent and very strong all season, but I think Mark Brown might be able to do this.
Well, 20 minutes on the clock to find out. Scott McFall was able to take pole position. The 5 red lights will soon illuminate your screen. The run in towards turn number 1 here for event 4, round 7 of the Tanso Racing Group Season 3. The GR86s are underway down under. Scott McFall with a decent launch, but look for Mark Brown on the right-hand side. He's going to take to the outside line as they run their way into Hell Corner for the first time, and he's managed to get his nose ahead and actually get the entire car ahead of Scott McFall into turn number 1, but he's gone over the gap and he's spun it. Scott McFall's going to get a good run, and he's going to look to the left-hand side, look for Harry Fox as well, following the Napa liveried car as well in the slipstream on this long run in towards Quarry Bend.
Be interesting to see what happens here as they come round to the front. Side-by-side action. What's going to happen here? See who makes it out alive after the first lap.
Absolutely. So Mark Brown, his good start turn actually into a slightly poor on that, getting over the crowd. The soft suspension of these GR86s really did hamper the run of the 143. Maybe getting a bit too greedy, maybe got overexcited, but it's given the lead back to Scott McFall. Very clever driving, must be said, from Harry Fox as well, to nick his way, following the Scotsman through, knowing his pace, knowing that overspeed, using that slipstream, and up now into second place. We follow on with this fight with Harry Fox, who is still trying to keep the gap to Scott McFall as best as he possibly can, but I have to say, with Scott McFall's pace, his sheer ability, Harry Fox has got a really tough time if he doesn't want to allow Scott McFall to get too far ahead.
Yeah, it's not a good one for not a good start compared to what we've seen before from the man that I've voted for, but there's a bit of contact there with the wall for Harry Fox. Opens Mark Brown, just about to say for Mark Brown to start with, but he's just gained that position back, so I'm going to shut up and handle his work.
Absolutely, he's back now into where he started, which is a place less than he would have hoped to be at this position on the first lap. Now we've got the Conrod straight towards the chase, and well, Mark Brown is a lot further away from Scott McFall than Harry Fox is to Mark Brown. Look for the 164 machine to move to the inside and take the run into the chase. It gives him the inside for the initial kink, but the outside for the chicane, so potentially we could see Mark Brown still counter with this. They breach under a second to Scott McFall earlier on the brakes from Mark Brown, conceding the place to Harry Fox. I think these guys have sort of got their ideas together. They're thinking, let's stay with Scott McFall, let's use the slipstream, and let's keep him honest. As Sean Weber, I think, has had an issue from what was, I think, the lead of the AMs. So we'll obviously check that as soon as we can. He's not in an AM, obviously. Don't know why I've come up with red, but he's down now to P24. So a couple of issues there from the South African, regardless of which it seems that the mountain is already claiming some victims. So we'll queue up the replay and see what's happened when we can. We'll bring you the action as soon as we can. As Joe Glass has had a spin in the background, I think he's registering him in the pit lane. That has caused a bit of an upset. Mark Proctor able to take the reins in the arms, and well, is miles clear of Shane Cotton in second place. The 80 car down in 14th overall, a massive 4 places off the back of Mark Proctor. So a lot going on in the opening moments, a lot of chaos to read for, and many people falling victim to the mountain, Callum.
There is indeed, and we do have to Sean Weaver here.
Oh wow!
Like just he's caught his outside wheels on the grass, unfortunately, and that's just sent him wide.
Well, easily done, of course, but he did the right thing, I think, in just staying stationary when the cars were avoiding him, being predictable, making sure that people were aware of his intentions, and they were all able to avoid him. So very well dealt with there from Sean Weaver, even in a moment of frustration. That is horrific, especially when there's 5 cars all fighting for position, all trying to negotiate an incident that as effectively as possible. Once again through Skyline in the S's and then the dip, but Daniel Wareham is on the back of a podium. However, I fear that with each lap that ticks by, with each apex that Scott McFall is able to stay in front, it's an apex that he's using to extend the gap out in front, and well, another opportunity for this race to turn into a fight for second. What really ideally is the slipstream range for this car? I mean, we can obviously see Harry Fox under a second. Will he be feeling the advantage of a slipstream, or is he a little bit too far back?
I think if you're within a second, I think a second's a bit too much. I think if you're within sort of 5-6 tenths, I think then yeah, you start to feel it. But I think a second is being way too generous for these cars. You don't really notice much, I have to admit, even when you do have slipstream. So it doesn't give you a massive advantage, but it's definitely more than what you get without it. Bit of an off track there from Mark Brown, and looks like he just missed his braking point there, leading into the last couple of corners, and surrenders the position to Dan Wareham.
He does indeed, unfortunately for Mark Brown. This race started on the highest of highs, and right now, as it stands, a quarter of the way through, it's off the podium. Harry Fox setting the pace with the fastest lap of the race, just dipping into the 2-minute 30s. A 9:29 was the lap, and he's able to keep that gap to Scott McFall under half a second. So what we feared could be Scott McFall running away, we might still have a fight for the lead. This long run towards Griffin's Bend, turn number 2, Griffin's Quarry turn 2, whatever you want to call it, it's the next braking zone, and it's the next target place for Harry Fox to maybe see himself up the inside for the race lead, closing and under a 1/10 and a half. Not quite close enough for the move under brakes, but the slipstream in these low-powered cars means so much more because, well, they've got less horsepower, they've got less top speed, which means if you can maximise the efficiency of the engine by not having as much drag, as much air resistance, you can gain so much with the slipstream, and Harry Fox is utilising that to best effect.
He certainly is, and before we look at some of the other battles going on throughout the grid, here is what you can see on board with Harry Fox at the minute on his helmet cam, and this is what he's seeing going through the mountain at the moment. So you can see not many places to get alongside vehicles up here. Things are very tight and narrow, so you've really got to pick your spot when you go to make your move, and you've got to be careful because you can see how close these walls are, so you can't really have any room for error or mistakes in this vehicle either. So a bit too much pushing, and you could end up well embedded in some of these walls really.
Easily done. It will not take much at all. So Harry Fox does have to keep a keen eye out and make sure he is keeping full concentration, because of small laps, that's when the mountain really will get you. As soon as you feel safe, as soon as you feel consistent, as soon as you feel good around Mount Panorama, don't get out of that mindset. Fear everything. Make sure that you are still focused. Make sure that you still brake half a second earlier, just that little bit of a margin, just to allow you to live, essentially, in the crudest way possible. In the background, you can see this fight. That's Marcus Law on the back of Alex Sylvester, the fight for 6th. And Law looking to lay down the law and go to the left-hand side and try and catapult himself ahead. John Sylvester and Mark Brown fighting over 4th place as well, side by side. The Whisk livery car on the left-hand side, that's the 1-2-1 of Marcus Law. And, well, fantastic stuff there into the chase. Textbook move. Maybe the up and under from the Platinum Racing car, however, well off the road onto the grass, and, well, that is not the way that you want to launch a counter-attack on a rival.
That's certainly not, but we've seen strong pace and strong battling from the Whisk team so far this season, so it's good to see that they're still pushing on nice and strong at this midpoint in the season. Really good to see from those guys there.
Is indeed fantastic stuff. Of course, GP2 Racing James Bostock is a little bit further down. He's in 15th place as it stands. This will be reverse grid pole position for race 2. We've got 20 minutes on the clock for heat 1 and 25 on the clock for the feature race of race 2. And, well, it's always good to start towards the front, particularly as we say at a circuit like Bathurst, where track position can mean just that little bit more with difficulties in some overtaking. I mean, we have seen an abundance of overtaking, but it always does help to start with your best foot forward. So for James Bostock, what's going through his head? I mean, coming into today, he wasn't, majorly in the championship fight. He wasn't, up there with Harry Fox or whoever. So maybe for him, is the 15th place worth more than getting into 4th place and getting those extra couple of points?
If I was in Bostock's shoes right now, I would probably be thinking about doing this, I have to admit. I've been sitting here saying, right, well, we're nearly halfway into the race. I could settle for 15th. He's got a group ahead of him. You can see there on standings that he's got a couple of cars ahead of him that are within range of an attack, and he's got someone kind of he's got Ollie Cole, just about 3 seconds behind him. So he's got a bit of breathing space behind him. So he could back off a little bit if he wants to, and just try and make sure he's equidistant between the two cars, both in front and behind, and settle out for a 15th place. Because I have to admit, if I was in his boots, I'd certainly be looking at doing that, getting the best start I can in race 2 and going for the win in that one.
Absolutely. As Ollie Cole, I think, has had an issue. Same too with Sarika Desla, the 8 machine there, the 77 of Kevin Randall, able to make the most of it and get himself now into 4th place in the AMS. Going to take a look as to what's happened to Ollie Cole, and this is through in towards Skyline through the S's, and you can see there the car just out of shape down the hill, all the weight on the front, which means all the weight off the back is gone because you're braking with the downhill as well. So that rear end, very, very light and very easy for any sudden change of movement to cause an upset. Same issue for Saraka maybe through the dippers, or is it going to be a separate one? Can't see because of the trees, of course, but I'm guessing that he got caught up with Cole being stricken on the inside.
Better view here, hopefully, and see what happened. I think we still have Ollie Cole on the inside there. Yeah, you do. Look.
Oh wow, it was a separate incident.
Yeah, he's done very well to avoid him though, but he's I think he's been focused on trying to avoid the situation and put himself off a little bit there.
Yeah, ever so slightly, I think. Back to the front though, Harry Fox and Scott McFall still going toe-to-toe in the fight for the leads with half of heat 1 left to go. Half a second between these two, not much in it whatsoever. Harry Fox started third in this race, has managed to move himself ahead after some clever driving on lap 1, and despite the over half a second margin between these two in qualifying, the margin is only half a second here in the race. The pace between them is virtually matched, with their last laps only separated by 18 thousandths of a second at 37.58 compared to a 37.74 for Harry Fox. So Scott McFall is feeling the pressure ever so slightly, and I'm sure that after qualifying he was hoping this race would be a little bit easier than it is.
He certainly will, but I've just had reports that our man that we thought would try and settle out for a podium spot for P1 for race 2, I believe, has had a bit of an incident. Let's see what's happened here. James Bostock, him come through the mountain and start. In fact, you can hear a bit of carnage going on in front of the track, and yeah, there's a car facing the other way. There's no way he can go. He's committed to his line. Not seen him due to the hard wall until last second, and that slowed him right down there, unfortunately.
Look at this fight though, quarter of a second between Scott McFall and Harry Fox. Are we going to see a change for the lead through the chase? Looking to the inside, Harry Fox has the overlap. It'll give him the outside for the chicane. He's got to be brave on the brakes over the curb, and Scott McFall not giving an inch. Who's going to be bravest on the brakes? It is going to be the race leader. The Scotsman deters the move to the outside from the Riskins racing car. Harry Fox, his time will have to wait, but he's still got plenty of time. That 7.5 minutes left of this race will translate to maybe 3 or 4 laps-ish if he is lucky. And that are going to be the 3 or 4 laps that he's going to have to use in order to win race number 1. It is a shame as to what happened to James Bostock, but still, funnily enough, he's actually a position ahead of where he was when we last checked in on him. So not doing too bad, and still on the front row for race 2.
Yeah, it's not been too bad at all there. If he can get a good start from P2, he's still in a fantastic position for that race, for some good points as well. So that's all good in the books for him as we jump back to look at Ollie Cole here, but a bit further down the grid, but still just as important for racing position.
Race is a race at the end of the day. Ollie Cole, of course, having that incident through Skyline and the S's not too long ago. Daniel Wareham and Mark Brown swapping positions in that fight for the podium as well. About 4 seconds off the top 2, but nonetheless a beautiful fight going on there, and it just goes to show the sheer amount of pace that Scott McFall and Harry Fox have got in this field, that even the likes of Wareham and Brown are struggling to maintain the same pace. Neil Kennedy, James Bostock fighting over 14th and 15th, you can see on the timing tower. But following on this fight, however, with Richard Flutie and Ollie Cole, who is doing his utmost to recover from a previous incident that we managed to take a look at a little bit earlier on. In the slipstream, of course, how much damage has been taken to that GR86, and how much is it going to be affecting him? Into turn number 2, you dip up and down through the very wonky straight, and now to the inside. He's got to be brave on the brakes. He does exactly that. Up in the P20 for Ollie Cole. Oh, maybe not. He's had a spin again. Oh my word. Backwards into the barrier goes Richard Flutie. Wow, okay, that was strange. And that poor pedigree sponsor banner. Yeah, well, go buy yourself some dog food, I suppose. Good sponsorship advertising for pedigree, but not great advertisement for the two involved. Ollie Cole, yeah, another incident to add to his tally.
Yeah, not ideal at all, but the main thing is we managed some strong dog food holding off all 3 cars there as they went into the barrier. Unfortunate of the collision incident as well. You had a third car that was very innocent coming in the background and unfortunately got entangled with the incident that happened there. So Ollie Cole has been towed back to the pits after that situation. Unfortunate for Ollie, to having a good race up until then. A couple of mistakes, but hopefully we'll come out fresh as anything for race 2 and have a stronger race and gain some points then.
Indeed so. Ryan Dudley trying to chuck his car to the inside. That is the pink and very vibrant car, I suppose, with the slashes down the side. Very nice looking 115 machine. He moves his way ahead of Michael Johnson and Neil Rocks, who is making the rest of the top 10 contingent in towards Murray's corner, and no movement between any of the three. They're line astern as they enter the final corner and entering the final 4.5 minutes of this race. Brilliant fight on display and a good run actually from Michael Johnson, who pulls himself to the left hand side. He's got to be brave on the brakes, but with an extensive amount of racing experience, he knows how to get moves done, he knows how to consolidate them. But now he's done the attacking, now he's got to defend.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough time to defend. I said the slipstream doesn't give you a major benefit. In fact, you can see these cars are still remaining almost identical going up the straight. There's not much difference between them at all. Sit here on board with Michael Johnson, and we can't see through them at the moment, but he's going to be looking through his mirrors big time and trying to make sure he's got his car in the correct position to hold off these guys as he goes into the mountain, because he can always guarantee that he will hold this position through the mountain. Fingers crossed, without any slip ups, he shouldn't have any issue whatsoever. Just hold on until we get to the other side of the mountain on the way down.
Absolutely. It's all about maintaining that position, maintaining concentration as well, making sure that you don't mess up in the wrong place, making sure that you don't give your opportunity to a rival to do anything silly. Don't make them think that it's viable to go to the inside of McPhillamy or into the downhill section of the circuit. Maintain a good enough gap, so much so that they think sensibly. But Ryan Dudley getting cheered on in the YouTube chat and trying to cheer himself on as well, practically pushing the JD Racing car down the hill through Skyline and the S's, using the maximum amount of curb for the maximum amount of rotation. Michael Johnson is still able to hang on. However, a poor run now in towards Forest Elbow, and the pink vibrant car of Ryan Dudley is still trying to find an avenue through. None into the braking zone. It's all about the exit here though. Who's going to take the latest apex? Who's going to build the throttle up first? Michael Johnson, I have a feeling that he might not be in 8th place by the time we reach the chicane.
That's certainly going to be tight between these guys, and jump on board with Ryan Dudley here. You can see how close he's getting. He's inching closer and closer to Michael Johnson. He's going to put him under pressure, go for the inside line. He's going to stick the car side by side. Is he going to get him before the corner? It looks to me as though he has done so, and he's got him way before the corner. Michael Johnson's almost side by side with the Whisk team member there in the background, and yeah, Ryan Dudley's going to hold position, but he's gone massively off track. He might have a slowdown penalty for that. I'm not 100% sure on the penalty situation in terms of going off track there, because I wouldn't say there's any time gained, but we all know what this sim is like, so it wouldn't surprise me if he does have a bit of a slowdown, but he's conceded the position at the end of the lap, which puts Michael Johnson back to where he started.
Indeed so. No white flag being waved. Oh no, we are on to the final lap. Actually, I did think so, because Scott McFall and Harry Fox both separated by less than a tenth of a second. One go around, 6.14 kilometres left of race number 1. Scott McFall, Harry Fox have been at each other's throats all race long, and it comes down to this. Harry Fox is going to need an absolutely amazing run, but look at Scott McFall. He's turned it up an extra notch into this final lap, and that gap is growing. Harry Fox is in trouble if he wants to win this race.
He certainly is. We'll jump back up to the battle here, and you can see there's almost a second between, and just as I say that, it's just gone up above a second between these cars now, so it's real pushing that Fox needs to do if he wants to get the win in race 1. I'm not too sure if he's going to be able to manage it, because Scott McFall has defied myself for certain, I was pushing for that down win, but Scott has sort of put me back down in my seat and really putting out a good display of pace on that track, and showing me what he has in his locker. And there's a bit of a bad run there for Harry Fox. I don't think he's going to be able to catch the current leader because there's now 1.5 seconds between the two cars. I think that could have been the nail in the coffin for Harry Fox in this race.
Absolutely too fast going into the dipper. Didn't have the speed to carry the right line through, and that unfortunately has had the knock-on effect whereby Scott McFall, provided any mishaps or mistakes or lap traffic, even if they catch up to the back of the lapped car soon enough, is going to be on to take victory here in Mount Panorama, to take the first of the 2 and take some good step forward in the championship battle. 10 seconds left on the clock and 3 corners left in this race for the Scotsman, who is impressed in almost every single series that he takes to. We remember him from the United Touring Championship as well. The Scotsman is incredibly fast, and he's going to take yet another victory here for the Tanso Racing Group. GR86 Season 3, Round 7, here down under. Scott McFall sees the checkered flag first, victorious from pole position. Brilliant race with Harry Fox just 0.8 of a second back. A good run up until the final lap. Mark Brown, John Sylvester and Daniel Wareham round off the top 5 contingent, with fights continuing on all the way down the field. And I have to say, race 1 bodes quite well in terms of potential for race 2.
That certainly does. It's going to bring in some tight and tense stuff with the whole reverse grid scenario that comes into play as well. That'll be very interesting, and putting a spin on things as well, as you've got Mark Proctor coming across to in top 10 as well. Top 10 position for Mark Proctor. That's not bad at all. He's had some good performances this season, so it's not a bad result for race 1, and hopefully we get a full grid for race 2 and see more of the action that we've seen so far in this race.
Absolutely. Mark Proctor then, the AM winner of this race. Shane Cotton and Joe Glass, the AM podium in P10, 13th and 14th respectively. Talking of overall positions, James Bostock rounds off the top 15, and that means that when the grid gets flipped on its head, he'll be the one taking to pole position for 25 minutes around the mountain. Is going to translate to around about 2 more laps. I think we are going to get about 10 laps in for race 2. Might be quite touch and go. Maybe we get 9, maybe we get 11. Who knows what the gap is going to be. We'll wait and see, obviously, when we get to that point in the race. But we'll talk you through the final results of race 1 as soon as we can. As soon as we get the results up, here we go. I can tell you for free that Scott McFall was able to take victory after a stellar performance from pole position. Lost it initially relative to Mark Brown, but very quickly was able to get it back. Harry Fox followed him through and then was able to hang on to that little bit of a lead fight that we saw all throughout the race. Waiting for the final standings, and then we'll talk you through them before we get underway to head on to race number 2. It's been a brilliant display so far here on the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel, so make sure you are subscribed, make sure you like the stream as well if you haven't joined it, and turn the bell on for notifications as well. Here are the results. This is from qualifying, so this is how they went into the race. We'll talk you through when they finished during the race.
Yeah, just waiting for the results to come through. I think we
Martin Lee, I think, still out on track.
Yeah, I think we've still got one car going around at the moment, so just waiting for the results to show. Fingers crossed we can get them to you as soon as possible. Just to give you that final rundown, that final bit of clarity in case there were any sudden changes on the last lap that we weren't expecting. But yeah, going into race 2, I think we are looking for greatness. I think we are expecting greatness. I think the capacity to overtake around here is something that we weren't really expecting to be of such ease. The slipstream in these GR86s really does aid you in your pursuit. So that reverse grid race, look out for it. James Bostock and Joe Glass will be on the front row of that one, so look out for it. The drivers at the moment will be taking to a warm-up session where they get their final run-ins before the second race. 25 minutes on the clock. We have ticked over into the warm-up session, so we will bring you the race results. Scott McFall victorious, with Harry Fox and Mark Brown making up the podium. John Sylvester and Daniel Wareham the top 5. Marcus Law and Alex Sylvester just in behind. The Platinum Racing team able to keep himself honest and well cemented inside the top 10. Michael Johnson, Neil Rocks, the top pro drivers, with Mark Proctor rounding off the top 10 and leading the way in the AM field as well. Lee Rylands, Ryan Dudley 11th and 12th, with Shane Cotton and Joe Glass the AM podium. James Bostock is the top 15. That is the reverse grid pole position, and that is where he will see himself going into race 2. Will he be able to keep it though? That's a different story entirely. Neil Kennedy, Sean Weber and Kevin Randall round off the top 18 from race 1. We'll let the rest scroll through as we wait eagerly for the 5-minute warm-up. Well, I, for one, really cannot wait to see what race 2 has in store. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what these drivers are going to give us for race 2. It's certainly going to be a tense showing, I think, especially with the reverse grid. It'll be interesting to see who can make their way up the table the quickest. As you can see there, obviously, Scott McFall, Harry Fox and Mark Brown all having good pace around this circuit. So it'll be interesting to see how many positions they can gain leading into this second race with the reverse grid.
How many positions do you think they can gain? What is looking feasible for the top 3? How easily do you think they'll be able to find their way through the field, knowing the pace of Harry Fox, Scott McFall in particular? Their pace is sensational. Is it going to be enough to see some swift progress through the field?
I think we'll definitely see... I've seen Mark Brown do a last to first already this season, so he's got what it takes to do that. And I've seen Scott McFall pick people off like there's no tomorrow, so they've all definitely got what it takes to get around here and get past people very quickly. So I can't say much for many others at this moment in time, but I know those two names for sure have got what it takes when it comes to cutting through tight packs of many cars. But who knows, because all the skill that we've seen before are on tracks that are a bit wider than this and aren't as tricky when it comes to racing around a mountain such as what we see on this track. So who knows, all that skill that I've mentioned might go out the window when it comes to these guys in race 2. It might be a bit too much, might be a bit too daunting, so it's definitely going to put a spanner in the works for a couple of people out there.
Absolutely. So they've got to be on their toes. They've got to make sure that they aren't getting too complacent. I think complacency is the biggest killer around a circuit like Bathurst. I think that obviously it goes without saying how difficult of a circuit it is. Literally, you are climbing up and down a mountain, as I've said. The walls are never too far away through the tight and twisty stuff. You've got the track, grass, barrier, essentially. That's the general consensus for the majority of the circuit. No extensive amount of tarmac runoff anywhere. So you have to be on it. And as soon as you feel like you're in a rhythm, as soon as you feel like you're building up speed, that's great. That's awesome. But do not let it trick you into leading yourself into a false sense of security where you think, oh, it's fine, it's Bathurst, yeah, I'm in a rhythm, this is cool, nothing can go wrong, I'm invincible. Bam, that is the moment that you will be in a barrier. So you've got to keep focused. You've got to look at every single apex and take it with 100% certainty and go into it with a bit of confidence as well. Fine line between confidence and arrogance, of course. You don't want to be taking too much off in the apex, but don't doubt yourself at the same time. I know I'm contradicting myself a little bit, you know, don't be confident, but also be confident at the same time. Sound a bit like Boris Johnson. I'm not, I promise. But in that same sort of sense, I mean, you've got to go around the circuit knowing that it will very easily chew you up and spit you out, but also not doubt yourself at the same time, because the moment you start to doubt yourself, the moment that you fall victim to the migraines of the mountain or other people around you, that is when you're going to start eating away at yourself, eating away at your morale, and that is when the mistakes are going to start to come in. It makes sense in my head, but maybe not to you guys. I have explained that very poorly. But yeah, be confident, but don't get complacent, I think, is the general consensus when it comes to Bathurst. You've got to be on it lap after lap after lap, putting in those lap times and making sure that you pick your way through in the cleanest way possible. It's all about that split-second decision-making around Bathurst, because things can so easily go wrong. You know, you've got to maximize your opportunities fighting your way through the field, but also you've got to think in that split second. Do you go to the left? Do you go to the right? Do you stick on the racing line when avoiding an incident? Those are all things that are circulating through the racing drivers' minds as they battle their way back around the 6.14 kilometer circuit here in Mount Panorama. So a lot to think about going into race 2, which we are going to get into in a few moments' time. But yeah, the potential is there, and I think we're in for a barnstorming race.
I think we are indeed, and it is, you did explain that really well earlier actually, it is all about concentration. You know, these drivers need to be 100% all the time, and if they're not, it's certainly not going to go well for them. So it's crucial that they all keep their concentration as best as they can, especially going through the mountain.
Absolutely. Well, warm-up has been checkered flagged. That means the gridding process for race 2 is going to begin. That is James Bostock and Joe Glass, the front row, with Shane Cotton and Ryan Dudley making up row 2. Lee Rylands rounds off the top 5 with race 1 and winner Mark Proctor rounding off row 3. Neil Roxon, Michael Johnson keep each other company as they run their way down in towards turn number 1. Alex Sylvester, Marcus Law, the top 10. Daniel Warren, John Sylvester round off the top 12 with the top 6 rows of the grid. And then beyond that, we've got the likes of Mark Brown, Harry Fox, 3rd and 2nd in race 1. Scott McFall, our race 1 victor, will join Neil Kennedy on row 8. Then comes Sean Weber, Kevin Randall, Hussein Sarah Kadesla in P19, Stuart Beardley, P20, Scott Kistrick and Dave Clark, the 11th row with John Johnston and Richard Flutie, the top 12 rows. As you can see, not many people left to go. Adrian Hadfield, Martin Lee, Gary Linton, Ollie Colt and Andy West. The 29-car strong field that we've got here, round number 8 of the Tanso Racing Group, is about to get itself underway for race 2. Here we go for the second time down under. James Bostock gets a good launch from pole position. However, I don't think he was joined on the front row from Joe Glass. I'm not entirely sure actually, unless he just got that bad of a start. He's side by side with Shane Cotton into turn number 1. But so far so good for James Bostock. What is going to be the progress from those in behind? I think a fantastic start from our race 1 winner. No, it's not actually. Scott McFall all the way down in P29. I think he's taken to the pit lane.
There at the start for a couple of these drivers. It's been a bit bit of an interesting one, but the Scotland Ford is definitely not out on track at the minute. You can see that time rising up big time, and I didn't see anything on any notifications regarding in fact, there was something, and we'll go over that shortly. We won't just go over that shortly. I do have a report on Scotland Ford. We'll check that out here in a few moments.
Wait and see, because the race one winner is a long way down. Maybe he's ran to the toilet and forgotten to press join on that gridding sequence. Who knows? It did happen quite quickly between gridding and that green flag running. But back to the action. Shane Cotton on the back of Joe Glass. This is the fight for the AM lead and for third overall. So for the AMs, this would be fantastic points if they can finish this high overall as well. Not much between them at all. With Michael Johnson not too far back either. Mark Proctor in the mix in the final place on the AM podium. Where are the big contenders? Mark Brown is up a few places into 11th. Harry Fox up to 13th as well, fighting with Johnson Bester for 14th. John Weaver up a couple of places to 15th. So a couple of chops and changes in the opening moments of race 2, but fight at the front remains largely the same. Ryan Dudley, though, is putting some good pressure on James Bostock. We saw some impressive pace, and we might see a change for the lead as well. Too deep into Forest Elbow there from Joe Glass and James Bostock. Ryan Dudley able to pick his way through and up now into the race lead.
It's unfortunate for James Bostock. We have seen it once or twice this season where he's been in a good position, and it'll be just the tiniest of mistakes, and that will cost him so much. And it's so unfortunate for him, because it does feel like the world is against him at that point, and especially coming out of the mountain with this long straight, you really need all the momentum you can get on the top of your opponents. And Joe Glass is making every bit of horsepower and every inch of that count, and a bit of an off track there for Joe Glass. Had a bit too much horsepower going into that corner. I think James Bostock's going to manage to come back and grab that position and chase down the leader of the race.
He will indeed. So we'll wait and see as to what's going to happen in that regard. Side by side as well, Daniel Wareham picking his way up to 4th place. Wide though goes James Bostock. It's been a nightmare of a start from pole position. He tumbles his way now to the back end of the top 10. Mark Brown and Sean Weaver caught in a bit of a kerfuffle. Look at that. They're nearly 3 wide on that run in towards Hell Corner. 2 wide, 2 deep. Noah's Ark started towards turn number 1, but I think it's all going to be settled once they reach the exit. This is the fight though for 2nd place. Michael Johnson able to pick his way up, but Daniel Wareham in that very pink, vibrant GR86, the 173 machine, is hot on his heels, and he's breathing down the neck, really stuck under the rear wing. Are they going to push for the lead, or are they going to fight for 2nd? We'll find out into the break. Side by side as well, Neil Rocks and Mark Proctor going side by side in towards Griffin's Bend for the 3rd time, and now you can see Joe Glass and Daniel Wareham still unable to decide their battle. Michael Johnson though flirting on that 1 second edge to Ryan Dudley. We have sort of agreed that 8/10 I think is the sweet spot for the slipstream. So if there's a small mistake from Ryan Dudley, we might well have him rejoin this very long train all the way down to Scotland Street in P16.
Yeah, it's a very long train indeed, and I have to say I'm thoroughly impressed, because one thing is Tanso Racing Group is there's drivers from all kinds of ability levels and skill levels. So Michael Johnson being a very, I'd say, well-known and very good racer overall, and does a lot of real-life racing as well, all the way down to people like myself that don't have much racing ability or racing practice, as Joe Glass has gone off maybe with a bit less practice than others there in the mountain. Hopefully that doesn't cause any issues for anyone else, because it's a bit of an odd, bit of a different place to go off, on that track, and you've seen Ryan Dudley's having a bit of issues there up top as well. But just as I was saying just before that, we do have all sorts of different skill levels in this Tanso Racing Group. It ranges massively, so it's just great to see how close these guys are.
Absolutely, the competitiveness that they boast is fantastic. Daniel Wareham and Ryan Dudley are side by side for the race lead. Look at this as they run the way in towards the chase. The 2 teammates fighting for the lead. They've got Michael Johnson just in behind as well. So 3 cars nose to tail for the race leads here in Bathurst. Daniel Wareham takes the lead from Ryan Dudley and Michael Johnson the podium. Marcus Law and Neil Rock's not too far behind as well. So if they do start to battle, then we might well see things start to shape up in this very extensive 6-car fight for the lead. Only a 5th of the way through as Ryan Dudley incredibly late on the brakes, way too late on the brakes, in towards Murray's rejoins the circuit, doesn't make contact with anyone, but oh my word, that could have been close. Daniel Wareham as well, slowing down ever so slightly. Here comes Michael Johnson to the left-hand side of the circuit. It gives him the inside for turn number 1. He's down the inside. Maybe we could see the up and under from Darren Wareham. Maybe we could well see him get a very good run on that straight towards turn number 2, but it's all about the exit. Michael Johnson under pressure.
He certainly is, and pressure's not going to let off. We've already seen Michael Johnson under pressure a couple of times tonight from those cars behind him, and yeah, it's just how he's going to deal with this now, because there's a lot more pressure on him, seeing as he's in the race winning position. He's got 20 minutes, just on 20 minutes alone, so there's a lot riding on these shoulders, and there's a bit of contact there with the one thing to remember in this series: damage is turned off, so these drivers can get back underway almost straight away, as long as it's a safe rejoin to the train. If they have to remember, damage is off in this season and this series, so drivers can get the full enjoyment out of the full series. You can see everything going on here throughout the mountain, almost two to go this way.
Look at him go. I think eventually Michael Johnson is going to have to relinquish place. Marcus Law picks his way through. Brilliant stuff. Now heading in towards McPhillamy. Great mutual respect between the two drivers. Daniel Wareham, though, retains the race lead in towards Skyline and through the S's. We've got 5 cars nose to tail, separated by only half a second apiece. A couple of car lengths between each of the cars. Michael Johnson struggling for pace, so maybe Marcus Law will be trying to lay down some good pace. A bit of a slide from Daniel Wareham as well. Was going to promote the 1-2-1 to maybe move his way through and into first place as well. 1.9 seconds back to Michael Johnson. He's had an absolute nightmare through the mountain.
Some of these cars being gobbled up by the mountain here in this second race, but look at that for a train as they come down, still so close together. And there's just so many different trains throughout this grid as well. You can see coming down here, a couple of spaced out, you know, on their own, but quickly, while we're just waiting for these guys to get down towards the start finish, just have a look at what happened to Scott McFall. If we can get a good camera on him. See if this will give us a better one. That will.
Here he is. All good. A couple of people didn't take to the grid, which is a little bit bizarre. He just pulls over to the left-hand side and doesn't move, which tells me that either he's not interested in taking part, or he's had a couple of hardware issues that have seen him retire very early on in the race, and I don't know what what has happened there. Back to the live action, and Daniel Wareham able to increase the gap to Marcus Law to about 9/10 of a second or so. Ryan Dudley side by side with Neil Rock. Sideways, Mark Proctor off the exit of Hell Corner. A drag race now between Neil Rocks and Ryan Dudley, who is trying to recover after a bit of a silly Billy moment, I think is the way I quoted it in the YouTube chat. It was way too late on the brakes in towards Murray, but he's trying to recover well, and he's maybe still has a glimmer of hope through the podium. It'll be the left-hand side, the long way round of Griffin's Bend, but if he's committed, if he's brave on the brakes, if he's brave, bold and brilliant, he might well have a good go. Long way round, nearly clipping the pedigree posters on the left-hand side. Too long of a way round though, unfortunately. It's from 57 for the span of one corner, and here comes Sean Sylvester into the mix side by side with Mark Proctor in towards the cutting. Oh my word, it's not often you see that. Ryan Dudley trying to nip his way to the inside as well. What a brilliant move there from the 115.
Fantastic move from Ryan Dudley. Once again, it's that concentration. You know, you've got that concentration, you've got the quick reactions, you're able to get the move done, and Ryan did it so beautifully around that left-hander there. Couldn't have done that any better if he tried.
Absolutely, it's all about taking the opportunities if/when they come into the cutting. You're braking essentially as you're turning, trying to point the car to the apex as best as possible. And with the body roll of these GR86's incredibly soft suspension, incredibly high centre of gravity as well, I've noticed as well in these cars. Still able to just chuck the car to the inside and make it stick. Incredibly brave from Ryan Dudley there, and exactly what he needs to do if he wants to have any chance still in this race to score some good points. Back to the back end of the field, though, show these guys some love. We've got Shuard Brielli going sideways. There is Dave Clark, I think, upside down. You cannot park there, sir, let's put it that way. He is not having a fun time with it at the number 3 machine. Well, okay, that was an interesting turn of events as the Lotus 79 liveried car of Stuart Brielli is working his way through and probably having a good old laugh in his cockpit, I reckon, because, well, who wouldn't, seeing a car upside down?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, you know, a bit out of nowhere, and to see that just suddenly happen in front of you, that's a bit kind of, always puts a bit of nerves in there, because, you know, I reckon there's a little sudden jolt of the wheel as well to keep away from the situation, because something happening at quick pace like that, especially through the mountain, is not ideal. So it worked out okay for the rest of the drivers. I have to admit that it went past. No one else seemed to have such a big reaction as what I probably would have, and sent myself into a wall seeing that. But yeah, so far so good for the rest of these guys.
I probably would have laughed myself into a wall. I'd have been taking the mick out of the driver that was upside down, and then realised, oh brilliant, that's a wall there, and then smashed straight into it myself. Neil Kennedy on the back of this fight that we were following, also a bit of side-by-side moments. Richard Flutie, Harry Fox, not really able to make much progress through, only up one place, and that's a bit touch and go as well. Richard Flutie, the long way round of Joe Glass through turn number 1. There's the Whisk Racing car of Harry Fox making up 13th place, 7.8 seconds off the back of Shane Cotton, which I think shows how important it is to make the progress when everyone's nice and bunched up, because now you get into situations like this where you're tripping over each other, where you're in 4-car trains, and that is exactly where Harry Fox would not want to be. He's losing the place to Joe Glass, who pulls the left-hand side into Griffin's Bend, as long as he's brave enough on the brakes. Look at that from Joe Glass. One of the AM drivers, AM Podium, has completely mugged off one of the pro drivers that finished 2nd place overall, way later on the brakes, way more committed on the brakes, able to take the apex, well ahead of Harry Fox, and into the car of Joe Glass. Well, just Harry Fox wants to pass around his ankles. However, here comes the comeback from 164.
Yeah, it's a good I think we're going to see a lot more side-by-side action between these guys. Almost 3 wide with, I believe that's sticking his nose in there and trying to make it 3 wide in the mountain. That's not a good idea, but he's going to go for it. He's got his racing driving mindset on, and he's really pushing for this. A fantastic drive from Bostock so far. Touch wood, I haven't put contact curse on that, but fantastic work from him so far as well. So this is definitely a strong round for Mr. Bostock from what we've seen so far this season.
Indeed so, and I have to disagree with you on the commentator's cast. As people said last week, I was watching Brad's Hatch stream, oh my word, Joe Glass making an absolute nightmare of the dipper, and that is going to promote Harry Fox maybe to go for a move. Here's a fight as well that we've been following on. Michael Johnson versus Ryan Dudley, 2 wide. You can see the very pink car. That's Ryan Dudley on the left-hand side of your screen. That's the right-hand side of the circuit. That's the inside for the chase. It's the outside for the chicane. Michael Johnson late enough on the brakes to keep this battle alive. Outside line, though, from Ryan Dudley. He's going to nip his way back to the inside, almost so close to contact. There is also John Sylvester, the Platinum Racing Team car, just in behind, eager to get involved in this fight as well. Inside, outside, who's going to go which way in towards Murray's? No changes between this 5-car train for 4th place. Brilliant stuff as Ryan Dudley is knocking on the door of Neil Rocks as well for what is P3. But yeah, I have to say, it's not commentator's cast. There's no such thing. The only thing there is bad driving or bad luck. I hate to say it. I hate to be that guy. It's a commentator's coincidence. However, Neil Rocks not rocking this race at all. He is a little bit wide through turn number 1, and that might put him on the back foot versus Ryan Dudley, who's on the charge.
I'm not too sure what's happened here either, but we've just had I think a bit of a pile-up going into the mountain, unfortunately. There's just some influx of incidents throughout the mountain. Oh, yeah, there's a bit of a roadblock going on here. Yep, I think enough is said about that. Bit of a roadblock there. Nothing you can do. There's 2 cars side on, and there's nowhere you can possibly go in that situation. You're on the brakes, but then your car locks up, and there's nothing you can do for that.
Absolutely, you really are a passenger. As soon as you lose control, it's just a case of hoping that things don't go even worse and accepting your fate. Michael Johnson, though, has been on a roller coaster of emotions around a roller coaster of a circuit. He was up in 3rd place at some point, I think actually up in 2nd place at one point as well, but unfortunately has fallen down and fallen victim to this fight. As brilliant as it is to watch, as fun as it would be to be a part of, is Michael Johnson. Oh my word, that is courageous inside through McPhillamy Park, and that has actually given Mark Brown a bit of an opportunity. No way they're going to go side by side down the mountain. Oh my goodness me. Mark Brown, I think, choosing the wiser option of backing out there. But as fun as this is to watch, as fun as this would be to drive, albeit very stressful, it's not helping their chances of progressing forward in this race, because, well, you can see Daniel Wareham and Marcus Law 5.5 seconds clear of this train.
Yeah, there's definitely some space now going on now. You can see a lot of the white times popping up, and not so many ambers or yellows anymore. The only ones at the minute are the ones we are watching at this second, which happens to be between Michael Johnson and Mark Brown as they race through towards the last few corners here of the lap, and there's only 10 minutes to go, so things are going to get a bit more tight here, because we're getting into squeaky bum time now, where everyone's going to put everything they have on the line.
This is where it all starts to count. In trains like this, the last 15 minutes really are irrelevant. It's what you can do now, and anyone can still come out on top. Pushed onto the grass there. Oh my word. Neil Rocks and Mark Brown side by side into the final corner. And it is going to be Mark Brown that comes out on top and up into 5th place. So Neil Rocks, Ryan Dudley was able to find his way through, and Michael Johnson trying to capitalise on it as well, adding to my point of that lack of momentum. It's similar to karting, really. Anyone that's familiar with sort of the pro karting scene, in trains like this that we often see in those karting races, as soon as you get overtaken once, everyone behind, it's like a shark smelling blood in the water. They want to capitalise on your vulnerability, and unfortunately that's what happens to Neil Rocks. He's lost that rhythm, he's lost that momentum, and he's lost that composure. And now it's so easy for everyone else behind to take a slice of the pie.
That certainly is. We're just going to jump back here towards Sean Webber because he's trying to Sylvester in the red black car there, and he's not going to have as much pressure going into the that's what I'd say the sensible thing, and accept a little bit to grant the driver ahead some space. So Sylvester's going to be gracious to that and hopefully take full advantage. As you can see, they're getting a bit closer now throughout the mountain. But there's just so many good battles in this race at the minute. It's difficult to get.
It is getting whiplash, the amount of times you have to go up and down the field and looking and trying to pick apart each and every single one of these liveries. It's my first time here for Tanso Racing Group, and I have to say, I'm smiling from ear to ear. I am thoroughly enjoying this, and I'm looking forward to each and every single one of the future rounds that I'm able to come to and commentate, because, well, this is one hell of an introduction, it must be said. Mark Proctor making up the head of the AM contingent in that 87 machine, mixing it up with some of the top pros and maybe trying to advance his way forward. The leaders of Daniel Ware and Marcus Law are incredibly close, only separated by a quarter of a second, and maybe with the margin that they've got now, 6.5 seconds, we might well see a change for the lead. Marcus Law was able now to close the gap. Is he going to go for the move? Another bit of a bump tap there, so either not wanting to pull out and go for the move just yet, or wanting to build the gap even more. We'll wait and see as they head into the braking zone for the chase. Is Daniel Wareham going to go defensive? No, he's not. Marcus Law has the inside for his taking and chooses not to take it. So maybe they don't want to fight too early and wait until the dying moments. As Ryan Dudley, John Sylvester fighting for a podium 6 seconds back.
Yeah, if Marcus Law could just be shaping up Daniel Wareham to size up his opponent really for the last couple of moments in this race, because the best thing he could possibly do at the moment is strike last second, so then Dan Wareham doesn't have any way of clawing anything back. So if he knows he's quicker and can get a better exit out of that mountain, he's going to fully capitalise on that by making a move last second, I imagine.
Absolutely, get them when they can't get you back, but again, it is a risk that you carry, because if you don't get them in the first place, then there's nothing for them to not be able to get back, because they've already got it back by not giving it up in the first place. So Marcus Law is carrying that risk, as you can see Ryan Dudley under a bit of pressure as Mark Brown is once again getting involved in this fight for the podium place. It's headed by John Sylvester, brilliant in touring cars, as I've said, fantastic driver for Platinum Racing Team, and he's proving that today in the GR86s. Side by side, just in behind as Mark Brown tries to go the long way around at turn 2, drifts the car out on the dirty side of the circuit, tap to the barrier, and a loss of momentum there, and a breath of fresh air, I think, for Ryan Dudley, who's able to escape for now.
He is able to escape for now, but there's no bridge for Mark Brown. He's now Michael Johnson sneaking up behind him and sniffing all around that bumper, trying to find the tasty dessert that lays just ahead of Mark Brown for P5. So Michael Johnson's going to push his hands again to get that. And I think at this point, when you're around this kind of group, you want to be pushing as hard as you can. You're not in a situation like Marcus Law where you can leave it till last second to make a move. If you know you've got the pace, you have to make the move as soon as it shows itself to you. So, and hopefully Ryan Dudley can do that here to jump onto the podium spots against the other Sylvester, John Sylvester. So hopefully he's able to get the pass done as soon as possible and put himself on that podium and hopefully defend it for the last 5 minutes of the race here.
Absolutely. The last thing you want is to be regretting not taking that decision. We saw it today in the ESL R1 over on Rennsport, the championship day. James Baldwin was 3 corners away from €45,000 and ended the day, I think, 5th place or something in the championship. And he was probably going to be kicking himself that he didn't take the opportunity sooner, wasn't too aggressive enough. But here we go, Ryan Dudley not waiting around at all, not waiting on any missed opportunities. He's taking it in the present, side by side with John Sylvester in towards the chase. Both equal on the brakes, and the 115 etches his way up ahead and on to the podium once more. We tick down into the final 5 minutes of race number 2. The top 2 separated by nothing, 3 and 4 separated by just as much. And this is a fantastic battle that is going to come down to the wire.
It certainly is, and that's one thing we've seen this season from Tanso all around at every round. It's going to be tense up until the last breath of the race, really. And also just looking around the grid, I'm just looking down my timing table as it stands, and we've got battles going all over the place at the minute with Joe Glass, James Bostock, and I mean, look at this pack of 4 led by Fluidity there in the lime green Fox livery, and this is another pack that will keep it close to the wire all the way down to the last few seconds of this race. But Scott McFall, who, bearing in mind, obviously we saw it pull over at the start of the race, has made his way back up into P15. If there's another race that had reverse grid, this would be Scott McFall's race, because he'd be starting on P1 the following race, but unfortunately this one is the final one of the night, so he's not going to get that chance. He's just got to push as much as he can, get as many points as he possibly can.
Absolutely, still close in the fight for the lead. Also a couple of swaps with Ryan Dudley, John Sylvester and Mark Brown when you saw the timing tower light up like a Christmas tree with all the changes. But yeah, Scott McFall, really impressive stuff considering he didn't move off the line and has now fought his way back up into P15 and might well be in 14th by the end of this race. Unfortunately, the race isn't long enough to see him catapult himself back towards the front of the field. But this fight right here, half a second, Daniel Wareham and Marcus Law searching for race victory, and they've not got long left to do it, because I think next lap is going to be the last time by.
Yeah, I think if it's not next lap, it's certainly the one after that. There can't be much left in this race now, and there can't be much left in the hands of these racers either. They've got to put everything they now have out on that track. They can't come back into the pits knowing that they could have put more into that to get the result they wanted. They need to go for it now. And I think if Marcus Law knows he has the pace on Dan Wareham, now is the time to make that move and try and hold him off, slow him up through the mountain if this is coming up to the final lap, and really try and step on the gas as you come out the exit. A bit like you're doing a rolling start, really. You want to slow up the guy as much as you can behind you, you know, within reason, and get the best exit you possibly can to get away as quickly as possible.
Absolutely, still a couple of changes in that fight for the podium, so we're going to have to divert our attention all the way around these final 6.14 kilometres. Barney the flag man, the strongest right arm in sim racing, waves the white flag to signal one time by for race 2. Daniel Wareham, Marcus Law fighting for the race lead. The fight for the podium comes down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars, all the way down to Sean Weaver in P8. Mark Proctor as well also in the mix, so we'll keep our attention focused on both, and we won't miss a thing when it comes to these fights. Not long left to go, and you can see the gaggle of cars in behind. It's absolute carnage, it's absolute warfare between the likes of Dudley, Brown and Sylvester. A drag race towards turn 2.
We can just jump on board at the moment. Let's have a look at John Sylvester. You can see here how tight things are. They're about to go into the mountain. Some of these cars going in obviously side by side, and they just want everything they can possibly get out of this race, and this is the best time to make your opponents slip up and cause some lapse in concentration, I think is the best way to put it. And you can see these cars trying to go 3 wide. This seems to be the commonplace when people try to go 3 wide in this corner, and surely it won't work, but these guys are somehow every week without fail. So fantastic for these guys so far, but there's not much left in this race now. It's getting really tense. Last few moments of this race.
Indeed so, and less than 2 tenths separate the top 2. Even slimmer margins in the fight for the podium as well. It's been great respect. We often give all the credit to the car that's doing the overtaking as opposed to the car that's being overtaken. It takes 2 to tango. It takes that mutual respect. Daniel Wareham versus Marcus Law, half a second in it. It's going to take a fantastic run out of Forest Elbow. He's wide, he cuts in late, he gets his foot down, and it's all about getting that pedal to the metal and trying to maximise the pace through the chase in towards the final chicane. Half a second. Is it going to close? We've seen how powerful the slipstream is in these GR86s. Daniel Wareham is 4 corners away from victory. He's got the kink, he's got the chicane, he's got Murray's. The gap, though, look at it, shrinking hundredths, now into a quarter of a second as they enter the second final braking zone. Is Marcus Law close enough? No, he is not. He has a bit of luck trying to deter Daniel Wareham, but I think with only one corner left to go, it might go the way of the 173 machine unless there's a late dive from Marcus Law, unless there's a late mistake. He is going partially defensive in the pink livery GR86, but there's no way through from Daniel Wareham, who's going to have to sit behind and accept second place out of the final corner, and Daniel Wareham will see the checkered flag first and will take victory in Australia. Mount Panorama Race 2, Round 8 of the Tanso Racing Group Season 3 goes the way of Wareham. Marcus Law and Ryan Dudley will see themselves on the podium, with Mark Brown taken to the pit lane on the final lap and Michael Johnson rounding off the top 5. John Sylvester 4th. What a race that was. What a display of racing action, and what respect given between each and every single one of these drivers.
Yeah, it certainly was, and it looks like Mark Brown didn't even make it into the pits. I think he actually had a bit of an incident there and crashed out, I think, on the final turn, because as you saw there, when we jumped on board with him, he was already in the tyres, so a bit unfortunate there for Mark Brown right at the very end of the race. We wait for these cars to now come across the line so we can bring you your grid for race 2. Scott McFall again, quickest lap time on the very final lap there in P14. Magnificent work all the way from rock bottom, so great race for Scott McFall.
Indeed so, and in the end he was only 0.8 of a second off Ollie Cole as well, so nothing in it whatsoever. As well, James Bostock, the 166 pole position man coming into this race, an unfortunate mistake in the opening moments, and it was downhill from there. Mountain isn't for everyone, but those that were able to tame it were Scott McFall and Daniel Wareham, the two victors of this evening, event 4 of the Tanso Racing Group. And what an event it was. I mean, Scott McFall in race 2, as you say, was almost faultless, and it goes to show how scary it would have been if he actually was able to take proper part in this race. What could we have seen from the Scotsman? But I'm sure he's got plenty more to prove in the races to come.
He certainly has, and there's a lot that all these drivers really can prove in the last few rounds of this season, and they don't get much of a break between seasons in Tanso either, so they'll get a couple of weeks off and then that's it, straight back into the action for more points and more incredible bumper-to-bumper racing between these guys. We wait for the last few cars to come across the line. There's still somewhat of a battle going on between Kevin Randall and Lee Reynolds. There's a good 3 seconds between the cars, so there won't be any change in the order for those two, but they kept it fairly close throughout the entirety of the race, so not bad from those guys at all. A bit unfortunate for Lee Reynolds, as you can see there, down 19 positions. Unfortunately, not been the best of nights there for Lee, but fingers crossed, come back strong in the next couple of rounds.
Absolutely, still a lot to come. All the cars have crossed the checkered flag, so we'll bring you the final results of race 2 as soon as we can. Then we'll jump to a couple of interviews. Scott McFall was the winner of race number 1. That's how they ranked up after the first 20 minutes. Here's heat 2. Daniel Wareham, Marcus Law, a quarter of a second between the two of them, with Ryan Dudley rounding off the podium in a hotly contested fight between himself, John Sylvester, Michael Johnson, Sean Weber, Neil Rocks, Harry Fox, all the way down, I think, the rest of the top 10. All of them were in with a shout of the podium at one point. Shane Cotton was victorious in the arms of Mark Proctor, making it a 1 and 2 over the course of the two events. He rounds off the top 10. Alex Sylvester, Ollie Cole, P11 and 12, with Scott McFall, a brilliant comeback drive after not moving off the start, down in P29, fastest lap, and not too far off the top 10 in the end of it as well. So brilliant drive from the Scotsman. Neil Kennedy, Scott Kostrick, the top 15, Richard Flutie, Mark Brown, and Joe Glass, the top 18. The 28 machine rounding off the AM podium. We'll let the rest of the results funnel their way through, but that's how the 18 cars rack up after what was a brilliant display of racing action. First up, though, we have got Mark Brown, who I have to say, you had quite an interesting event today. I mean, going into race 1, you were on the front row, you got the lead going into turn 1, but you had that slight little moment on the curb at turn 1, and from there it just seemed that you didn't quite have enough to keep up with those in front.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate one. So it was. I had good enough pace now, but had a bit of a slip in the first corner. Then Daniel was then alongside me, so I just lost my momentum going up the hill on the first lap and lost track of Harry and Scott. But we had a good fight then, me and John and Daniel. Then I think sort of midway to the end of it all, so it wasn't too bad now. It wasn't too bad.
Absolutely not. I mean, talk us through the end of race 2 as well, because we did sort of see you take quite the plummet towards the back end of it. What happened in that fight? Did it just get too heated between you lot? Because for the most part, it seemed quite respectful.
Yeah, basically too many incident points at the end. I just got a black flag at the end, touched the grass, and that was it in the last corner. So unfortunately, same again with a good pace there with Ryan, and was it John? John again. But Ryan was just sticking it to the inside of every corner and just impossible to get around him. I was kind of hoping he would let us past eventually, but no. He done well now. He defended well. So yeah, it is what it is. It's a good track. It's good fun now, and yeah, I enjoyed it now. And fair plays to Tanso for the great league. You know, I don't think there was too many incidents in the first race now, and it seemed to be very good now from what I hear. So it's good to see it like on such a technical track and everything too. You know, the quality of driving's getting a lot better. So fair plays to the men in it and all.
It's not often you can take 29 GR86s around Mount Panorama and all of them survive. So yeah, very good stuff to be boasted from Tanso. In a week's time, though, we take to Donington Park. How are you feeling about Donington? Because I know it's a circuit that I love watching, and I'm sure it's going to be a great combination in these GR86s. How are you feeling confidence-wise going into Donny?
Yeah, I think it should be fit. You know, I'll be up there. I'd say I like Donington Park. You know, Scott now, McFall. He's kind of in a league of his own, and Harry Fox now. They're two fast people, so you know there's a lot of us. Like there is a lot of fast people there with Daniel and Ryan too, and John Sylvester, like you know, and Alex Sylvester too. So there's a good group of us there that can fight through it, like you know. So it should be interesting. It will be interesting.
Absolutely, looking forward to it, of course. And before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a quick shout out to in the commentary booth?
No, just to yourselves for a great stream. You're doing a great job. To Tanso, to John, to James, you know, for putting on the event. It's great. It's great to see it. Great to see the mix of drivers in Tanso too. You know, from novices, rookies through. Like so, seems to be pretty respectful. So it's good to see that sort of racing. You don't really get the same respect probably in some of the officials and the normal iRacing. There's a lot of issues, but yeah, it's a good group of racers now, so it is, and hopefully it keeps growing and gets better.
Absolutely. Well, looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us, and best of luck for the rest of the season, Mark.
Thank you very much. Team yourself. Take care.
Awesome. Mark Brown able to boast a couple of good results over the course of the evening. Ryan Dudley, however, is a driver that we were a little bit disappointed with in race one. You sort of threw away a couple of opportunities, but you more than made up with it in race two. What a brilliant battle that was.
That was crazy, wasn't it? How I kept them two behind me.
I don't know how you did it, to be fair. I mean, you had that initial moment. I can't quite remember. Was it deep into Forest Elbow or something like that? You threw it away and we were gutted for you. And then you really did fight back. Brilliant move. Like the one where you ducked to the inside going into the cutting. Absolutely brilliant stuff, it must be said. You must be quite pleased with the podium.
Yeah, in the end I was, considering I messed it up at the start of the second race as well. But yeah, I managed to claw it back, and I'm happy to get a podium again, because I think I did last week as well. So it's good for me and Dan to get on the podium again.
Yeah, well done to the pair of you. Looking forward, though, obviously, Bathurst now. I'm sure you're still on the high of all that adrenaline with the battle. But if you can cast your mind a week in the future when we go to Donington Park, how are you feeling confidence-wise in that regard? I know Mark Brown is feeling all right. He's confident that he's going to be towards the front. But how are you feeling? Rounds 9 and 10, Donington Park, is it a good combination for Ryan Dudley?
I mean, to be honest with you, it's it's obviously a track I know reasonably well. But I'll be looking to tuck him right behind the faster guys and see what happens at the front of the pack. I mean, if I'm lucky, unless we have a few mishaps like we've seen earlier. But otherwise, yeah, I'll be looking to tuck behind them, and hopefully something pans out for me.
Fair play. Well, of course, before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to while you're in the commentary booth?
No, thanks to whoever's watching, and obviously to the guys if there's anyone there supporting me as well. So yeah, thank you all.
Yeah, I think we had Toxic Munchkin in the YouTube chat giving you a good old support.
Yeah, he races usually as well, but not tonight.
So he's chilling you on, and then instantly took the mic as soon as you messed up. But anyway, best luck. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll forget about it. It's fine because you've got Donny in a week's time. Best luck for you, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Awesome stuff. Ryan Dudley, third place in race number 2. Callum, then it must be said that event 4 really did impress in terms of both races. Race 1 and race 2 had their action, had their chaos, had their drama, had their moments. We weren't disappointed around Bathurst.
No, we certainly weren't. There's not many rounds so far. There's not been one actually so far this season where I've sat here and thought, you know what, I wasn't very impressed with that. So far, every round has brought just excitement, thrills. There's been some spills along the way with some of the incidents that we saw. The roadblock today on the mountain, bit unfortunate, but these things happen. It is racing at the end of the day. These racing incidents happen, and like we mentioned earlier in the broadcast as well, you got drivers from all kind of different backgrounds and all different skill levels, so you're going to have little incidents here and there. It's all expected, but it's just a thrilling season, and I'm sure it will be right up until the bitter end. So the title charge will go on, and who comes out on top with the championship and with the trophy in hand will be interesting. We've got the teams as well that are fighting for their championship points as well. We'll bring you those updated on the next rounds, but hopefully everything will go to plan for the races out on track for next week. And I'm really looking forward to next week, actually, bringing back to the UK, and I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Touching more on that, actually, just leading on to the next question. I mean, Donington Park, I love Donington Park. It's up there with one of my favourite circuits, not only in the UK, but in the world. I think in cars like these, it's going to be a fantastic mix.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think it's going to bring in some good racing as well. It's not going to be a track that, in my opinion, is as anywhere near as tricky as the mountain here. But it's going to be really good for seeing 2 or 3 wide battles going on all around the track. So I'm looking forward to seeing that go down next week. That'll be really fun to watch, because obviously Donington, as we know, it's quite a wide track. So it'll be good to see these cars going in 2 and 3 wide into some of the corners, and seeing who comes out on top with some of the battles for positions.
Indeed so. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in the YouTube chat, that is unfortunately going to bring an end to our coverage of the Tanso Racing Group Season 3, Round 7 and 8, live from Mount Panorama Circuit here in Bathurst, down under in Australia. We want to give a big shout out to all of you guys at home that have been watching along in the YouTube chat, and also to the drivers and family and friends, whoever is going to watch along at post-stream as well. It's been fantastic, the amount of support that we've had here on the JP Broadcasting YouTube network. So if you have enjoyed it, make sure to give a big thumbs up, like, subscribe, and turn the bell on for notifications to not miss a thing that comes your way in terms of sim racing, because we have it all. If you want radicals, endurances, single seaters, GTs, GR86s, whatever tickles your fancy, we have got it in store for you. All throughout the week, there is something to keep you occupied. And if you're trying to find a home in something that you already feel quite nestled in, say if you're a touring car fan and you want to branch out to maybe some GT or endurance racing, you've got a perfect platform to do so here on the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel. So make sure you are involved, and make sure that we see some familiar faces in the YouTube chat next time. In a week's time, the Tanso Racing Group takes to Donington Park on Sunday, the 11th of June. Round 9 and 10, event number 5 of this brilliant season, will come down to the wire once more to start the final leg of only a few more races. Myself, Zach Sweeney, Callum Mileham has been alongside me in the commentary booth. We thank you for watching, but until next time, it's a very warm goodbye.